Good morning, good morning, good morning. My voice is still a little raspy. I was very sick for a few weeks, and that's a story for another day. What I want to talk to you about today is something that I personally experienced, and I've experienced this multiple times, and it's extraordinary. It's reclaiming your power while diving head on into the fear that you have. So this is so super interesting. There's situations where in our minds, and I'll use myself as an example, in my mind, I have blown completely out of proportion, but I didn't think I did. My perception was that if I have a conversation with a certain individual, I will be met with resistance. I will be met with anger. I will be met with being disowned, essentially, or cast out, right? Like all these fears were coming out. And this is a conversation for another video as well, but like these fears are also rooted in some of the traumas I have previously gone through as a child, being left out, being cast out, being ostracized, right? So they've stayed with me, and I've been avoiding this one conversation for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, because I figured it's going to be the worst ever, right? And then the other day, it was approaching closing time at work, and I said, you know what? I'm either gonna have this conversation right now, or this feeling is gonna linger another day. And I didn't want it to linger another day because I felt like it was draining my energy, and I felt like it was just draining the life out of me, and I couldn't have that anymore. So I stood up to myself, right? I stood up to that fear, and I called the individual and I had the conversation. And guess what? The conversation went nothing like what I perceived it to have went like. It was such a breath of fresh air, and it was interesting because when I sit back and analyze this conversation, I can see the fear, and for weeks, I can see that all the powers that didn't want me to have this conversation because of all the empowerment that I feel right now, everything was happening around me. I was being distracted. I forgot to have the conversation. Anytime I actually wanted to have the conversation, I made an excuse not to, or I was so afraid that I cowered back into a scared child, and I didn't approach it. And it took weeks for me to take the courage to actually have the courage and actually tackle it head on. And the really interesting thing is, it was all in my head. The perception of what we feel a situation could potentially be like is so untrue. So when I stepped into the situation, I stepped into the conversation, I looked around, and I realized that fear that was keeping me back from having the conversation was all smoke and mirrors. It does not exist. And this is what I want you to walk away with. That fear that's preventing you from doing something that is truthful, honest, and in line with source is all smoke and mirrors. It does not exist. And without going through that experience now twice, with very difficult conversations that I've had with individuals, actually 3 times, it is now very clear to me that I see a pattern. It's when we are on the verge of doing something extraordinary, about taking our power back, about jumping into that timeline, that reality that we are meant to live as our higher selves. Everything around us conspires first to amplify our fears so we don't step into the fear and tackle it. And then once we do, we realize that it's all smoke and mirrors, that fear, and we have that power back. And I feel so amazing and empowered, and I'm sharing this with you today because I want you to have this feeling too. And I was driven to have the conversation. I was driven with the desire to have this conversation because I wanted the truth to come out and just have it face and be on the table without expectation. And every time I did, I came across a hurdle, or I forgot about something, or I got distracted. And this is what I hope that you're able to gain from my insight here, is that you have all the power that you need inside of you, and any fear that you have when confronting truth, when aligning with source, and when doing something really good in the world, aligning with your purpose, all of that is smoke and mirrors. All those fears that are preventing you from doing it are smoke and mirrors. I really hope this blesses you today. I hope this resonates with you. And I can't wait to hear what magic you're going to be working with. Mwah. Live life wealthier. Bye.